Welcome to part 2 of my not-so-built-in bunk beds. You need to purchase 2 cube storage units. I purchased mine through Target.com for $39 each. Step 2 is to make your first platform. The only purpose for this piece is so that your cubbies are not opening against the mattress. You want to elevate the cubbies so that the mattress has its own place and the cubbies can be opened up above the mattress. If I hadn't had a bunch of scrap wood I was trying to use up with these 4x4 chunks, I would have just used 2x4s for the entire thing. You need a pocket jig. If you don't have a lot of tools, this is one of the first things I would ever purchase. It creates pocket holes like you see me doing here. It's a type of joinery that is very strong, simple, and effective. I cut a thin sheet of plywood and nailed it with my nail gun and painted it just on the front side before sliding it into place. Make sure when you're trying to decide how deep to make the platform, you account for your trim. Also, it will be easiest to make this the same length as the cubby unit. I used full-size beds, so if you are using twins, you are going to need to use the 3-wide cubby storage. Next, using pocket holes again in 2x4s, you're going to create rectangles and then cover them with plywood. The 2 outside ones I did only had 1 piece of plywood on one side, but the inside one you need to have plywood on both sides. I then cover the front with a strip of wood. Be sure when you are building them that you account for the front piece you will be adding into the total depth so that they don't end up hanging over the front edge because they're too deep. I use silicone caulk on the top and bottom of each of them to attach them to the next piece. Be sure to place furniture pads on the back of each piece as you stack them to protect your wall from any damage. A tip while creating all these pieces is to follow this order: wood glue, nail gun, wood filler for holes, sand it with fine grit sandpaper, shellac primer, light sanding again, and last paint. This will create the best finish and will prevent you from spending a bunch of time at the end trying to fill all the nail holes. The shellac-based primer prevents yellowing and tannins from leaching through your wood. Next, you're going to measure that gap on the right side, whatever that is. However wide it is and however tall it is, you're going to install a piece of wood from top to bottom just like I did here. Then I measured the little piece above that I needed to fill, and I used some wood and a piece of plywood again to make a little piece to add in. Okay, last thing for this side. I made a small bookshelf and I used 3 1x8 boards. I simply cut them to length, then I laid them down flat and I ran them across my table saw to create a groove so that I could slide a thin piece of plywood down the back side. That was for my 2 sideboards. The third board that I used was to create shelves across the front. Measure that last little area so you know how deep and how wide you need to make your shelf. These shelves are so short, I knew that they would be fine if I just used the silicone caulk again and my nail gun. I then got it all set up and realized balls. I forgot to measure so that it could go all the way against the wall. The baseboard was in the way, so I took it back outside and cut it down a little so I could put it up on its own platform so that the shelf could scoot all the way against the wall. The very last thing I did on this side was attach this bookshelf to the things behind it with my nail gun, and then I added some crown molding across the top just so there wasn't a gap with the ceiling and to make it appear that it was built in. And that's it. Side 1 is complete. Join me back on Friday or Saturday and I will post the next video for the other side of this built-in bunk bed.